and he's from Bombay. And India has always been a particularly important geography to us. A little on my background, I've been a venture capitalist in the United States for 11 years, 8 years at a firm called New Enterprise Associates, and as Saurabh mentioned, very focused on networking, infrastructure, and boxes with blinky lights that you hook cables up to, and was responsible for some of the largest outcomes in NEA's history while I was there. Left to form Shasta Ventures 3 years ago, and over my career I've backed 19 companies. And the reason that I mention this is I took a look at the statistics in those 19 companies recently, and I realized that about 2/3 of the founding teams that I've backed have had at least one immigrant Indian on the team. And I'd say if you take a look at those companies, about a quarter to a third of those companies have had significant back office operations in India. So this is something I've been interested in for a long time, and 11 years flashed by, and finally this is my first trip to India. And while I was here, I've learned a number of things, and visited a couple of my companies that have operations in Bangalore, and one of the things I'd like to do is share what I've learned. And I'd say the things that I've learned haven't been what you might expect somebody that's coming to India for the first time to have seen. I mean, the bedlam, the dusty streets, the cows on the highways, I'd say the general energy level was something that I had expected, and a lot of the contradictions I'd heard about for years. But what I would say, and this is what I've told people that have asked me about this week, is what I was struck by when I came into town, came in and got into the hotel at 3 in the morning on Saturday morning, and then immediately got in a car to do what all tourists need to do, which is to go to Agra, was I was wide awake and awestruck in the 4-hour drive that I took out there. And whether it was the cows in the road, whether it was the trucks that had horn please or honk please, and the artistic detail, was the energy level that people have in this country is what has very pleasantly surprised me. Seeing people smile everywhere from all walks of society, I think is a real hallmark of this culture and this society that I think really serves India well, and is something that I would encourage the country and entrepreneurs not to lose. So as you know, as I've traveled around the country and have seen the differences between the cities, visited one of our companies, Tumri, where half of the founders are from Bangalore, have really been struck by this entrepreneurial energy, and whether it's the artistic detail. And what I would say, just to build on Mark's point, because we'll get into some panel discussions later, is I think it's that entrepreneurial zeal and the creativity that is here in this culture. And when I mention this to people, they say, you know what it's due to? It's due to the fact that we're free. It's due to the fact that we have these democratic institutions. And you know, you talk about the million mutinies now, and you talk about the energy that goes into these democratic institutions. But I would say it's that energy, that drive, that creativity that makes me feel very, very bullish about the future for this economy and the entrepreneurship behind it.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Ranu, perhaps maybe you want to talk a little bit other than venture capital on your speciality, M&A.
Thanks, Saurabh. I think we have seen this market from two perspectives. One is essentially as an investment banking firm which has seen companies through their life cycle, from the time they're created, from the time venture capital went in, to the time they exited via IPO or M&A. And the second thing we have seen is we've seen the cycles which have been in this industry. We've seen the entrepreneurial optimism in this country change from 2000 to 2003 and back again now. What I want to touch upon is specifically two aspects. One is, when you look at venture capital, when you look at private equity today, what are the various areas, themes, which people are looking at investing in? And the second part, which I want to touch upon, is over the years, how has the distribution base changed, as in how has the investor community changed in terms of what it is currently vis-a-vis what it was a few years back. We have also been, I would say, fortunate to see this from the perspective of an investor, as I have had a background in investing earlier, and we have a growth fund with a firm called Mayfield Ventures, again out of California. When I look at venture capital today and where it is going, I think there are two key themes which we are seeing in the market. One pertains to technology, and in technology we see a larger number of companies today than we saw 3 years ago, 4 years ago. In fact, a common comment from a lot of venture capitalists coming from the US to India: show us the technology companies, where are the technology companies, where is real technology getting created? And I should say that while we have been bullish about this whole thing for the last 7 or 8 years, it's only in the last 2 to 3 years that we are seeing semblance of companies with scale, with technology, and more importantly with plans well thought out, which are hitting the market. These are, these could be areas like, wireless, for instance, because of the fact that India is adding consumers extremely fast, subscribers very fast. It's a market where wireless applications is something where there is a home ground where you can test that application before you take it globally. It's areas like gaming and animation where we are seeing some really exciting work happening. And then, it's the whole play which US VCs are very familiar with, is the play of consumer internet, where what we are seeing now is just the beginning of the cycle. And we expect that by 2010, 2011, you should have at least a couple of $1 billion plus market cap companies created out of consumer internet. There are various opportunities. When we saw this market in 2000 and companies came up in travel internet, there was just no demand. There weren't just enough people using those services. But look at what has happened in the last 2 years or 3 years with airlines counting as much as 50-60% of their revenues coming from online sales, ticket sales. So this is mainly on where, when you look at venture capital, where it is going. When I look at private equity, just before that, the other place where we are seeing early stage money going in is differentiated BPOs and what some people love to call KPOs. And I think that's a very interesting area. There was always a question mark around scale, the ability of these companies to scale, the ability of the management teams to scale, the ability to add customers, as these were not very large firms. And some of these companies have demonstrated in the past on their ability to scale up fast. Whether you talk of companies like eValueServe, which has grown in the area of equity research, or similar companies. I mean, there's been a fair amount of movement, and there are areas today like legal BPOs, legal outsourcing, where there is significant amount of early stage money going in because the opportunity is very large, and for once there is an immediate traction in terms of customers coming and at least giving out initial business. When you look at private equity and how that is today impacting, on the services side, there is a significant amount of churn activity momentum in the mid-market IT services companies. If you leave aside the top 3 or 4 companies in India in IT services which have been created over a 20-25 year life cycle, you are left with the next 10-15 companies which are well within each other's reach if you added the M&A part to it.